Hello there. Is the Dunu SA6 MkII a worthy successor to the legendary SA6 that we all know and love? Is it? Is it? Well... Hi guys, this is Andrew with Headphones.com, and today we're going to talk about the follow-up to one of my favorite IEMs at around $500. This is the Dunu SA6 MkII, which is the follow-up to the SA6 and the SA6 Ultra. May it rest in peace, unless they bring it back one day. And in this video, we're going to check it out, but just a quick disclaimer, this unit was actually provided to me by an extremely kind community member. Big thanks to you for sending it in, you know who you are. Of course, I've not been paid to say anything in particular about this IEM, and all thoughts and opinions here are my own. Now, the SA6 MkII is a little bit more expensive than the original. This one comes in at around $580, where the original was $550, and this is, of course, a 6-balanced armature configuration. So let's quickly talk about why this release is interesting and why the original SA6 was so important and loved by many. In fact, for a while it was my daily IEM that I take with me outside for walks, which is shocking, I know. And the reason I say it's important is because there are a lot of IEMs that go for some version of neutral, be it tunings like the Moondrop Blessing 2, or the Variations, or the Theaudio Oracle, tons of other IEMs that are aiming for some version of neutral. And this is where the SA6 was able to carve out a bit of a niche, being a bit more relaxed for the upper mids, more elevated in the bass, that kind of thing. It also has a bass boost toggle, which I shamelessly left on all the time. So the SA6, the original, is a competent, relaxed alternative to those normal, neutral, more clinical kind of sound signatures. Then there was the SA6 Ultra, a collab that was an excellent business decision by our friend Zeus. It was basically the same, just with a bit more upper treble, air, and extension. He gave the people what they wanted. But apparently they only did one run. Maybe they'll bring it back at some point, but as of filming this right now, you can't actually buy the Ultra anymore. And now comes the SA6 MkII, and it is not that. It is not just a collab-free Ultra. With the MkII, they basically doubled down on that niche kind of warm sound that the original was known for. It's like they did that, but then more. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To start off with, you get all the things that you'd expect from Dunu when it comes to accessories, and that's a very good thing. These come with a newer, larger case that looks great, even though it might not fit in as many places. But it also comes with the same, high-end Dunu cable that's modular, and I love this. It makes it so much more accommodating of a wider range of sources. Plus, the cable itself feels great to use. Like every time I open the case to take it out and put it into my ears, the act of doing that brings me joy, which is a rare thing. For the IEM itself, it's got this gorgeous wooden, almost orangey, swirly faceplate thing going on, and it looks super classy in typical Dunu fashion. Dunu always makes a classy looking IEM. And comfort is also excellent for me. And as I mentioned, I like to go for walks with these, and I've worn them all day, and I've never had any issues. But it should be mentioned that there is a little stubby bit that sort of sticks out in the back. So if you've had issues with IEMs that have this in the wrong spot for you in the past, that might be something to consider as well. And then for the connectors, it is also 2-pin. Nozzle thickness, because I know you guys care, I measured this at around 6 millimeters, so take that for what it's worth. But once again, it was no trouble for me. Okay, so how do they sound? Let's talk about that. In a word, warm. Basically, the SA6 MkII is similar to the other two versions, just slightly warmer, and a couple of other differences throughout. So here are the graphs, but for these I wanted to do comparisons with the other versions, and I've done that with the Gross coupler and canal extension, since it's easier to be more precise with the seating and the positioning using the canal extension than if you were to use the actual pinna. Just keep in mind that this is the official Gross REO 402, and it can't be compared to the various clone couplers that you see being used in the wild. But regardless, I also measured this on the more advanced B&K 5128, and so for those looking for all the nuances and to deep dive on the measurements of this, that's the one to look at, especially for low and high frequencies. That's where it's just simply more accurate. I'll eventually add the 5128 measurements and the other ones to a forum thread that I will link in the description below, so if you guys are curious about that, that's where that will be. In any case, compared to the Mark I, the SA6 MkII has a thicker and richer presentation to the bass and to the lower mids. And that's when comparing them with both the bass toggle on and off. Now, you can see the response here for the Mark II is a bit smoother in general, but also with less energy throughout the upper mids and most of the treble. And speaking of which, you also get quite a bit more upper treble, so that's extra kind of air and sparkle up top as well. It's not exactly sibilant, because the sibilant range is a little lower than that, but it does have a lot more, zing to it in the upper registers. Now, compared to the Ultra, the Mark II also seems to have a bit more bass and lower mids. And in the treble, you get more upper treble on the Mark II, but you get more mid treble on the Ultra. And this is an important difference, making the Ultra sound a little bit more balanced for its treble presentation overall. So with the Ultra, it was kind of like the original, but with a bit more upper treble. The Mark II has even more upper treble and less mid treble, if that makes sense. So this is why I say that on the Mark II, they basically doubled down for that warm kind of concept, just with a lot more upper treble air as well. So how does this sound with music? Essentially, it trades overall clarity for euphony, that kind of thicker, more tonally rich kind of character that's often associated with warmer headphones. So lower dominant tones come forward in the mix a bit, certain vocal tones, for example, or the meat or girthiness of a guitar string comes forward a little bit more strongly. You get the idea. Now, this also isn't at the cost of that sense of resolution and detail for the mids. Like I'd actually say for that warmer, thicker kind of presentation, it does a pretty good job of doing that while also remaining reasonably detailed for the small gradations of volume and finer little nuances in the music, even if the overall clarity that you find in other IEMs isn't there. And that's again just by dint of it having less upper mids overall. For the rest of its subjective qualities, I find it to be similar to the other two, which is generally decent, but I tend to think that the tuning here is really what's going to be make or break for people. Like if you're really into that warm, rich kind of sound signature, then maybe this is going to be for you, but if that doesn't sound like you, then this isn't going to be your kind of thing, regardless of any subjective or technical chops that it may have. And I got to say that for me, while I liked the original SA6 and I love the Ultra, this one misses the mark a little bit. In fact, if I were to rank the three, I would place the Ultra at the top, then the Mark I, and then the Mark II. But the other issue is that the Symphonium Meteor exists. That would be my pick over all of these at this price point, especially with the foam tips. With the other tips, I think that the upper treble gets a bit too intense for me on the Meteor, but with the foam tips, it curbs that and makes it sound really, really nice. So when you get a proper seal with that IEM, it does a better job of satisfying that sort of relaxed but balanced kind of niche that the original SA6 also satisfied. And that's in part because, well, it's just more balanced. The Meteor is slightly more HRTF appropriate, meaning you get a less affected kind of sound, but still relaxed and versatile for a wide range of music. And that's a little bit more what I'm looking for these days than that sort of, richness and euphony that you might get with the Mark II here. On top of that, the Meteor also gives a better sense of physicality and impact down low, even though the SA6 Mark II is bass boosted. And that's really where I think the SA6 Mark II isn't really all that special. So for me, it's just a clear win for the Meteor at this point. And I'm also going to give a nod to the Theaudio Oracle Mark I for those looking for a more neutral or clarity-focused presentation that's also not too intense or fatiguing for the upper mids and for the treble. So in my view, that's still an awesome all-rounder that I have an easy time giving a recommendation to. But really, that's the way to think about this stuff in my view. If you're the kind of person who finds most well-tuned IEMs like the Moondrop Variations to be too intense or too fatiguing in the upper mids, for example, or in the treble, you do have a number of alternatives to choose from, and I think we can confidently place the SA6 Mark II into that same category, even if it's not what I would personally go for at this price point. Because again, I don't find it to be better than the original or the Ultra or the Meteor. And so for me, while the Mark II here retains much of the DNA from the original and also from the Ultra, it's not exactly an upgrade. In my view, at best, this is more of a side grade, and I think depending on the person, it's going to be a little bit hit and miss. But that's of course just my opinion. If you are interested in somebody else's opinion or additional opinions, that's where you can check out the audio files up on headphones.com, or you can check out the forum threads linked in the description where other people are weighing in on this one as well, along with our Discord. That's where you can basically disagree with me and tell me that I'm wrong, and you can yell at me about all kinds of other things. Okay, I'm just kidding, don't do that last part. But still, that's where you can find me. I'll be hanging out in there, lurking. But that does it for me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.